It's 2021 and overlanding is all the craze. So what is one of the best vehicles you can go out and buy and have a crack at doing just that? And it's this, the 2021 Subaru Outback. It's been recently updated with a host of little features and tweaks to make it a lot better for 2021 going into 2022. And I really want to test out what it's like both on-road, but more importantly, off-road. So I'm going to walk you around the outside features, the inside, and take it for a drive to let you know if it's still worthy of being one of Australia's best-selling off-road cars. And so I purposely picked the Subaru Outback Touring model because at $47,790 before on roads, I thought with all the features, safety systems, styling, and also capability, that is a really good deal. And it's because, you know, against all these other inflated prices that we're seeing with SUVs and all that sort of stuff, because that is the craze, I think something with a bit more off-road capability like this and the standard safety systems and creature comforts that it comes with, I think that's a pretty decent value for the asking price, and I can see why lots of people go out and buy one of these. Now, the Subaru Outback's design isn't something that really stands out from the crowd. It's a good looking car, it's a smart looking car, and it definitely looks off-road focused, but it's just not going to stand out from the crowd all that much. But if that's your type of car, well, this is one of the perfect cars for that. It's just so popular that it's a bit hard to stand out when especially you've got Subaru's iconic and very popular silver paint. Some features that I like, I love these LED headlamps. They're very bright, they turn with your wheel, and they've got automatic high beam, which is great. Love the little Outback script in there as well. There's also some chrome happening up front, and chrome is a bit of a theme on the touring model here with some satin silver on the wing mirrors, but then chrome continues. I like the 18-inch wheels here. The design looks great, and I think the two-tone design going on looks good with this car. The tires aren't off-road focused all that much, which is a bit of a shame, but I believe that's why the sport trim exists, so the touring is a bit more road focused and a bit more comfort and family orientated. I do like the cladding down here because it matches the roof rails up here as well. I believe I've passed a few people, these roof rails make people think this might be an undercover cop car because this is a very popular car with Australia's police force. This is really where you can see the wagon influence in this car. It's sort of taken a big departure to become more like an SUV more than ever in this generation of Outback, but it still looks like a wagon, which I kind of like. Now, I think Subaru have actually done a good job of improving the sound of their doors because originally they were pretty tinny sounding, but have a listen to this. Yeah, look, there's a bit more weight in them. I like that. So that is a bit of an improvement. But what a massive improvement this interior has seen, and it really is this giant center vertical touchscreen that is the party piece of this interior. Now, before I jump into that, just a general vibe in here. There is plenty of light. I do find this sunroof a little bit small. A panoramic roof would have been kind of really cool to see in here. I like the seat design, although the headrest is a little firm for my liking, but everything else is very comfortable. And of course, they're electronically adjustable with memory settings here. Love the stitching as well up on the dashboard, and tiny little storage area up on the dash, and a decent sized glove box, although it is taken up by this woolly coated instruction manual here. So that is there taking up most of the space. But luckily you have a very smartly packaged little center console. It's not massive, but it does have your CD player in it if that's what you like using. And it is double layered, so you do have a thin little surface area that's grippy, so you can put something like your phone or your keys while you're driving there. Now, these cup holders are massive in the middle, and they do have like a weird little, platform raiser. I assume that's for like your lattes and stuff, so it makes it just a little bit more shallow. And then really, I just love the design in here. It's clean, it's minimal, but it's also something that doesn't feel like it's aged. I think Subaru's done a good job of bringing the Outback's interior into 2021 going to 2022 with this update we see here. Now, what I will say is that the gloss plastics in here are a little bit of a detractor, which isn't the worst thing in the world, I know, but it's just fingerprints and dust central when they do start to accumulate, especially if you keep this sunroof open ever. Now, I like how the climate controls are permanently put on the bottom of the screen, and you can change what quick buttons you want there as well, which is great. So if you need heated seats or you need to adjust your fans and all that sort of stuff, it's really easy to jump to there, even though they are now on a screen. And what's good is that Subaru Subaru have thoughtfully put some hard buttons on the outside, like important things like tuner and volume knobs, and also demisters are quickly accessible there too, and of course the temperature controls, which are just great to have as hard buttons if everything has to go into a screen. And there is a little sensor up here. This is for your driver monitoring system, and it is a very active system there. So that's what that little screen above the screen is. Now there is a little bit of a pocket down below. I like how it's got some rubber texture in it, so you can throw your phone into there. I've obviously got a cable running out of here because that's how you connect to Apple CarPlay. There is an auxiliary cord and there's 2 USBs up front. There's an electronic handbrake. Here's your shifter. I'm not a big fan of the materials used on the shifter. It just feels a little bit cheap, so it's a little bit, you know, not as nice to interact with, especially because it's putting this leatherette material down the bottom. I thought, you know, it could feel a little bit nicer, but it's still very easy to interact with. And I love the ergonomics of the dashboard, how it meets the center console. Just nice and easy resting position for your hand and really easy to interact with the screen. Ergonomics are on point here. Now, taking full advantage that this is a wagon-shaped SUV, you do feel quite comfortable back here as a 5'11" tall adult. I am in my driving position up here and I have plenty of knee room. My feet have plenty of space underneath to go, but they don't really have a whole bunch of wiggle room, but I can at least neatly tuck my feet underneath the chair in front of me. I have automatic windows in the back too, which is a nice touch. I've also got rear heated seats, nice, and also 2 USBs in the back. So Subaru does know what they're doing for a family car that are carrying around 4 people for a longer journey. This is a very comfortable car for that because you're given all the amenities that you might just need. Now, how do the rear windows fold down? All the way. Look at that. People are gonna love that. So that is great to see that you've got all that motion, because you're gonna need it to get all the air you need back here, because that sunroof doesn't come into the back. So that's just something to note, that it does feel, you know, a little bit darker than it does up front because we're missing a sunroof in the back here. I love this center armrest. It just looks nice. It's got a nice integration with the cup holders, although there's some gloss touch plastic there. But you know what, I just think it looks good as a contrast against this leather material, even though it is still a fingerprint magnet, clearly seen here. But you tuck that away and you can go and sit in the middle seat. Now, this is an all-wheel drive car and there is an exhaust running through the middle, so there is a sizable, you know, transmission and exhaust tunnel here. My feet do not fit on it. They sort of fit, you know, perched on it a little bit, but I have to move my feet into the other footwells, and again, playing footsies with the outside passengers. But these seats are really comfortable, great amounts of cushioning. So even in the middle seat, I can sit here and feel relatively comfortable, although I'll have to be careful about how hard we hit a bump, because this middle seat passenger might just hit their head, where if I'm sitting in a normal seat, I've got far more head clearance than I do sitting on this slightly raised seat. Now, you can recline these seats as well, just a little bit, so I can sort of relax and, you know, get nice and chilled back here and just sort of have a bit of a snooze if I have to. So it is just a comfortable touring car in that regard, and I really think this does live up to the name in terms of the interior comfort you have for the touring part of the Subaru Outback name when you grab this top end trim. Now, what I found interesting is that this power tailgate is possibly one of the quickest I've ever opened in reviewing cars. It is just quick to act. It doesn't really beep or anything like that when you open it, and it just gets on with the job, which I found actually to be a lot more useful than other power tailgates I've used. Now, obviously, like I said throughout this review, this is a wagon SUV hybrid, so you get 522 liters of boot space back here. It's a nice level load floor, and there's some amenities back here like this honeycomb shaped boot mat here, which I thought was upside down, but it's actually nice and grippy and it stops things sliding around. So more of this, please, as odd as it looks when you first open the boot. There is a little 12-volt socket in the back, and there's some little hooks here if you need to secure anything. But they're oddly loose for some reason, but I think, you know, they feel pretty rugged there and they lock away just nicely there. And there's also some little shopping bag hooks as well, which is great on both sides. And there is a cargo cover, which is very handy to have, which you can slide forwards or you can slide up out of the way like that. So I think it's actually a nice little bit of design there for the boot. It's a very versatile car. There's also a little cargo net here, which is great for small loose items, which I've been using and been loving every second of using that. And then underneath the boot floor, there is a full-size spare, which is awesome, and everything you need to change one. So that really does go into the touring name. I won't say this doesn't live up to the badge. It's not just a badge, it does everything that you might hope a car that's designed for touring is built to do. And additionally, when I lifted that up, I also found out that the wheels are made by Enkei, which are a famous Japanese wheel manufacturer, and that just makes me respect this car a little bit more because those are pretty special wheels. Now you can fold these seats down by using these tabs here, which is very useful, and they're very quick to respond, and even better, they fold flat all the way and with one push. And so it's a nice flat load floor. It is a little bit low because this isn't a tall SUV, but there's still plenty of usable space, and this little bar comes out with ease if you need it to. So look, I'm very impressed with the usability of this car, and I think when you sit in a dealership and go through these features, it just all adds up to be a really good option, and I can see why it is so popular. But then comes the test drive, and something that you can't really test is the off-road capability, which we're going to test right now. Okay, so driving the Subaru Outback on the road, it is the touring model, so it's meant to be comfortable on the road. And so I'm just gonna run through this motor, this gearbox, the suspension, and a little bit what the all-wheel drive system feels like out on the pavement here. So right now we've got a bit of open, bit of road, and this is a usual spot that you find yourself in if you're driving a Subaru Outback and you're on a big road trip. You've pulled over for something to eat, something to rest, maybe the bathroom, and you need to get back on the road. So let's see how this does going 0 to around 80 kilometers an hour, getting up to speed. So as we take off, the automatic stop system is really responsive. That's nice. Indicators on, have a quick look at the blind spot, and that's 138 kilowatts and 245 newton meters coming from a 2.5 litre flat 4 petrol motor. And it's not the most powerful motor, but I just love the character this motor has. You know, old Porsches, old Volkswagens have naturally aspirated flat 4s, and that's what this sort of reminds me of in a weird sense, and it's a good sense too, because it's not boring, I don't think. I think it's a, you know, very interesting motor to have. It's very different from what's out of the market, although a turbocharger probably wouldn't go astray, or even a turbo diesel option that would give you a lot more torque. I just think this is just an interesting motor to have in this car. But I haven't really had any complaints about the power it produces, although, you know, it's not a fast car. And I've never really found myself finding it all that boring. I sort of like digging down that accelerator pedal and getting that little Subaru rumble from that flat 4 motor. It's just a very interesting motor, and I do like it because it's just, you know, not many other cars have motors like this in them. And so we do have the CVT transmission on board, which you heard holding those revs. It's a continuous transmission, which is what it's part of the name, continuously variable transmission. And it's just one of those transmissions that's a little bit controversial because it's not very exciting. It's a little bit dull, if you ask me. But for this application, it does a fantastic job of doing a great service to keeping this car comfortable. That's what this does a really good job of. There's no gear changes that are required, so you're just always just cruising at, you know, around 1,000, 2,000 revs when you're higher up in the speed limit, which is great. And so it's just one of those transmissions. I think a lot of people that don't care about gear changes or don't really want to change their own gears, they're just going to go, it's comfortable, don't have to worry about it, great. And so that's what this does really well. It's just one of those transmissions that just sort of runs in the background and just delivers when you need it to. It's pretty responsive as well, along with the motor. So if I need to do an abrupt acceleration like now, it's sort of quick to get up the rev range. It's not, you know, it's not really clamoring for gears. There's no awkward juddering between gears or anything like that. So look, it's a good car in that respect with this transmission. Now, talking about the suspension on road, it is very comfortable. That is what this car does really well. And I think part of the biggest appeal of it is that it is just so comfortable on the pavement. It's, you know, it's softly sprung, and it does have a pretty dull steering feel for anyone who's chasing any WRX influences. Not really much here, and that's sort of, you know, part of this car. It's just a good family car, and I can see that here. It's very clear. It's very easy to understand why people love driving this, because it's just so damn easy to drive. It's just get in and go. There's no gear changes, there's soft suspension, you have an all-wheel drive system which feels nice and grippy. It's great. You can't really say this car is uncomfortable or bad in that regard. It's just not super sporty to drive. So if you want a sporty overlanding car, which doesn't really exist around this price point, you're not really going to find it with the Subaru Outback Touring. But what it is it does touring really well. And now what I love the safety systems on this car. I've experienced some of the best in Hyundai and Kia's cars, and I still think they are some of the best, but Subaru does a really good job as well. They have these eyesight cameras up top, which sort of keep an eye out what's happening on the road, and you can set your cruise control and have your lane centering active, and it's really good at tracing the car in front of you, and you can even change the characteristics of what the radar cruise control is like. So I always have it in comfort because I don't know why anyone would have anything but, and it's just one of those things where you can relax and just set it and forget. It's really, really good, and it just makes long trips so much easier. It actually made the trip coming out to this four-wheel drive track a lot quicker feeling, just because it was so smooth, and you never felt like it was carrying on in any regard. It was just a nice experience, and I think that's why people also love these cars, that the safety systems make you genuinely feel like you're being wrapped in a bit of bubble wrap that makes you feel like, hey, the car's looking out for me. Now, of course, you buy a Subaru Outback Touring because you're going out touring, but you've got to do the Subaru stuff. So we've jumped onto a fire trail here, and I'm going to see how it goes on our little off-road testing circuit. I'm not expecting major things because it's not a diff-locking, attacking off-road armored sort of thing. It's just meant to gently be able to take on a bit more of a rough section of road. So we've got that thing to drive down. Let's have a go. So before I take off, I'm gonna take us out of normal mode. There's a thing called X mode here, which is a bunch of different drive modes, and there's only a few to select from. There's snow and dirt, there's deep snow and mud, and there's normal. So we're gonna go into snow and dirt mode. I'm also gonna go into the screen here, and I'm gonna go into car info, and it's gonna show me what my wheels are doing in terms of what angle they're at, and it's also gonna tell me what degrees of attack I'm at, if I'm going up or down, by how many degrees, and it's gonna also activate hill descent control. So I'm going to go down this sort of bit of a hill here and sort of see how we go with this hill descent control. Right now it's doing a decent job of just modulating speed. It's perhaps a little bit fast, although it is quick to rein it in. And look, yeah, it's okay. It's not as controlled as I would like in hill descent control. It is a little bit, quick, but that's not too bad. That's actually very good. I'm actually pretty impressed with that for a hill descent control system in a family four-wheel drive like this. Now, this does have a bit more, ground clearance than a standard wagon, and it's more of an SUV, I would say, than a wagon, but it's still in a wagon body shape, so it's a pretty unique design, and it allows it for a bit more ground clearance to tackle some tough stuff, and also, clear some slightly higher rocks or, obstacles in this little off-road section. Now, the hill descent control works really well as we're cruising along this little dirt path. I don't really have to touch any of the controls. It's doing a nice job of modulating the power. And just with this car, I'm not gonna really search the deepest ruts for this to go down, because this really is, a wagon first, and then I would say an off-road a second. I'm just sort of trying to make sure that we can go through some of these sections without any problems, and look, that's pretty good. I reckon that's pretty good. So this is part of the appeal with the Outback, is that you can take it on a trail, load it up with stuff, and not have to be worried about any sort of front-wheel drive mishaps or having a sort of a lame all-wheel drive system. This is Subaru's all-wheel drive system we're talking about, for goodness sake, so we should be able to go off and do a bit of overlanding. But hey, look, I'm pretty impressed with that. It's a comfortable suspension setup too. It's nice and capable on the road, but it also has given me plenty of confidence to drive around on this track, although it is just not that high up on the ground compared to an off-roader, so you just have to be a little bit cautious about how you go around things unless you really feel like bringing out your inner Subaru WRC driver and absolutely fanging it. But look, that's impressive. I think it's one of those cars that's capable, and if going through that, I think that would scare a lot of all-wheel drive cars that aren't really meant to go off-road. But Subaru's all-wheel drive system is just one of those systems that you can sort of lean on, and I think that is very true after experiencing it through that. Now, should you buy a Subaru Outback Touring or just a Subaru Outback in general? Well, if you need a larger family car, or if you're just someone on your own, it doesn't really matter. It just means that you have a ton of space, you like comfort features, you like a good road trip vehicle, and you like something that's also capable of turning off pavement and going on a track just like this, well, this is your car. I think this is a brilliant machine, although it could do with, you know, a little bit more weight behind some of the materials and also have a bit of a kick up the bum with a tiny bit more power, but those are very minor flaws in a very ideal road trip vehicle like this one. I love spending time in this on a daily grind or even the road trip getting out to here. It is a relaxing car, it's a comfortable car, and it's just something that, you know, makes for a great daily driver and something that you can take going on overlanding adventures. I've actually become very fond of the Outback after this experience, and I can clearly see why it is so popular with many drivers here in Australia. Now, in saying that, thank you so much for watching. My name's Cameron. This is Product Review Cars. Please subscribe because it helps out the channel if you want to show your support for more Aussie car reviews just like this, and I'll see you in the next one.